Savvy Business Radio, drawing out the best from our guests with our host, Christina Nichman.
Our guest today is Stephen J. Bistritz, president and founder of SellXL.com, a sales, training, and consulting company. He is also the best-selling author of Selling to the C-Suite, what every executive wants you to know about successfully selling to the top. Find out more about Stephen and his program at SellXL.com. Hi, Steve. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio. How are you today?
Good afternoon, Christina.
I'm so happy to have you join us today. One of the biggest topics we get asked to have on the show is sales and money, because as we all know, without either of those coming into our business, we don't have a business. We're going to dry up and most likely go out of business. So we're very blessed to have you here. Your company really helps people really sell to high-level executives and C-level executives, which a lot of our past guests have mentioned that, hey, I've started to go out into the corporate market and want to sell to C-level executives, and they're not sure what is the difference between selling to an individual on the street or maybe selling to a C-level executive. What are some of the things I have to know? So we're grateful to have you out here today. But before we go to sharing all your wonderful wisdom in that area, share a little bit about your background and how you came to working in sales.
Okay, well, I started with IBM, oh my goodness, many years ago, and I spent nearly 28 years with IBM in a variety of sales management, and training management positions. And then I went to work for a small sales training company where we actually delivered workshops to tens of thousands of salespeople around the world. And then in 2002, I started my own business, which is really SellXL.com. And I have a one-day workshop called Selling at the Executive Level. And actually, the book I just wrote, Selling to the C-Suite, is based on that one-day workshop.
Wow. And you've been now in sales for a long time. Is there a difference for anyone who's a business owner, a small business owner that is now deciding, I'm going to sell to the corporate market? What do they have to know that's different from selling to, say, their neighbor or a guy down the street?
Sure, right. Well, when you're selling to C-level executives, number one, the first thing is you absolutely have to be prepared. You have to be prepared for that meeting. And what we try to tell salespeople and sales managers, sales executives, and it's in the book, Selling to the C-Suite. And by the way, this is the second edition of the book. First edition was published in 2009, and this is now 9 years later. So we did a total rewrite because some things have changed. But basically, selling to executives, the first thing you have to do is be prepared. And we tell salespeople that you want to do education and learning, what we call 3 levels of learning. You've got to know a little bit about the client's industry, you've got to know about the client's company, and then you have to know about the client executive himself or herself. So preparation is absolutely key.
And what have you found now that you've worked in so many industries with sales executives? Have you seen the biggest misconception or maybe mistake that a lot of sales reps and managers make in companies when it comes to selling?
Sure. Well, the first thing that salespeople typically try to do is sell their solution, their product, or their service immediately when they get into the door. And that's not what executives want. Executives want you to listen before proposing your solution. They want you to make sure that you understand exactly what their needs and requirements are before they talk about your solution. And what I tell salespeople is that executives buy not when they understand, but when they feel they are understood.
Ooh, wow. And
that's a key phrase. And what I tell salespeople is keep that in mind as you walk in the door. Executives buy not when they understand, but when they feel they are understood.
I love that. And this goes to any salesperson, whether you're owning a jewelry shop or a dog shop or selling to high-level executives, is people want to feel that they're being listened to. And I think that's a lost cause in not just sales, but in life these days. I go out with my friend for a cup of coffee and we're sitting there and I'm talking to her about what happened in my week, and the phone rings and she's looking at a text. I'm like, oh my gosh, can you please put the phone down and listen to me?
Right.
It's something go.
Yeah, that's another thing. You don't want to be distracted when you're making a call on an executive. Phones are off, beepers are off, no text, no emails, not when you're talking to executives.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, you mentioned something about don't come in there, just raving about your solution for them. How do you know they even need your solution unless you listen to what their problems are or where their pain points are?
Well, that comes from the preparation. Before you walk in the door, before you meet with that executive, you should have an understanding, some level of understanding of what that executive's needs and requirements are. Like, in other words, what I tell salespeople, you don't want to go in and say to the executive, what are your top 3 business objectives? A better question to ask is, I understand some of your objectives are A, B, and C. Which one is most important to you and why? You did research and homework to find out what A, B, and C were, what their key objectives might have been. You're asking them for their insight in terms of what's the most important one to them, so that hopefully you have a solution that can address one of those key objectives or one of those key needs and requirements.
I love that you went here, because I recall a number of years ago, I often have done intel on my possible future clients, and I'll either look on their business page and all their various social media to get a picture of where they're at, what are their needs, so that when I meet them, I have an understanding of where they're even at, where we're beginning. And I remember calling one gal up and saying, hey, I saw that you were, saying on social media that you're really looking to get your book out. And I wanted to see if we might be able to help you. We're a broadcasting company that, broadcast XYZ, and we felt that it matched your target market, and we wanted to see if we might be able to help you. And when she heard that, she was so impressed that I even found out stuff about her company and that new stuff about her that she was like, where did you find this out? I'm so impressed. And we got to talking, whereas she did not want to do business with us yet at that moment. She is now sent people to us because she felt she was heard. And I think that's something I'm getting from you that's very important, that is missing a lot from businesses in general, whether even if you have the client, that's not the end of the sale. You want to keep it going, because this could be a client for years or forever to come if you let them know that they're being understood and heard and then valued all the time in your relationship with them.
Absolutely. And one of the things you can do today, that's so much more simpler than it was back in the day when I was first out there selling as an IBM salesperson many years ago. I mean, you can go onto LinkedIn today and get a look at the executive's profile. And typically the executive you're calling on, they have a profile on LinkedIn. And look not only at their profile, but who they are connected to. Perhaps there are people that are in their network that you know and can connect with before you make that call on the executive. Get some insight about that executive before you walk in the door. And you can't tell how important that is to an executive when they understand that you've invested some time, done your homework before you meet them. Executives don't expect to educate you. Yes. They expect you to have a level of knowledge and information about them and their company before you meet with them.
Yes. And to know that you're really showing up as the expert there to offer them a solution, but also to hear their needs fully, not to just throw stuff in their lap and say, look how wonderful I am in our product and what we could do for you. Making it all about yourself and not them.
Yeah. And the other thing, and look at not the fact that you have a like rank with an executive, because executives aren't looking at your rank. They're looking at the potential value you can deliver to them. I met with a CIO once when we were doing some research with CXO level executives where we asked them about their relationships with professional salespeople. I had an MBA student with me who asked a lot of the survey questions we had put together for the interview. And when the interview was over, I turned to the executive. Now, this was the CIO of a Fortune 500 company whose name will not be told right here, right now. Okay. I won't share that with you. But I asked the CIO, I said, Jim, why would a person at your level ever want to meet with a professional salesperson? And this is in my book. I'll never forget this because it validated me and the profession. He said, I meet with professional salespeople because often they can offer me solutions that even people within my own organization can't develop. They've seen these problems in other organizations, and I want the benefit of their experience. Now, how about that, for a professional salesperson walking into a meeting with a C-level executive? That's what executives are looking for, the value you can potentially deliver to them with your solution.
Exactly. And it's like what I love about that is you're mentioning the fact that you're coming as a professional salesperson with an outside perspective of that can be the value they're looking for, or could be that something they hadn't seen that could be right in front of them that they're missing. But this outside perspective, this outside expert can show them, oh, well, I didn't see it that way. Now we have a solution that we didn't see before, but now we do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, what I'd like to talk to, Stephen, is what happens, like you mentioned LinkedIn, and this has happened to me where people who I've built a relationship with thanks to the show or business will come to me and then ask me for favors through LinkedIn. Can you make this connection? How has it been in your experience, the best way to go about that? Because you don't want to be seen as a taker and just going to take from people. And I've gotten that kind of icky feeling where people are just asking for favors. And I'm like, I don't even know you that well. Why should I introduce you? How do you go about doing that?
Well, I always look for people who I have some level of knowledge or connection with before I'm going to, do quote a favor for them. Okay. Because if I am going to grant them the wish that they desire, okay.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I know who that person is. I want to know what their level of credibility is. And like you just said before, you're looking for give and take, okay? You always want to help people if you can, but you want to make sure that, there's a quid pro quo there also. There's an opportunity for them perhaps to help you. So you want to make sure, first of all, before you grant that connection, that you understand who this person is, because, if the person is going to recognize you and your connection with the executive you're trying to meet, you want to make sure that they have a level of credibility with that executive.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what I find for me, some of the ask that I've gotten in the past, the person I didn't know that well. I hadn't built enough of a relationship to know that I can trust and send you out there and know that my credibility is on the line. Because if I'm sending you out there and referring you and your credibility is not up to par, it will reflect badly on me. So I really kind of suggest to people, really build the relationship. Don't just think, okay, I met you once, let me ask all these favors, and keep up. What is your perspective on the follow-up and building of relationship, both with C-level executives and with other professionals and salespeople?
Well, I think, first of all, executives told us that the best way to get to them was through a lower level connection in their company. And that could be a lower level executive, a lower level person, but again, it has to be a person that has credibility with the executive that can help you get to them. And also, what I tell salespeople is treat the gatekeeper as not only a resource, but I say treat the gatekeeper as if he or she is the executive himself or herself. Because those gatekeepers often have knowledge about what's of interest to that executive, and they can often help you. I can't tell you how many times gatekeepers have helped me gain access to a senior level executive. And by treating those people with deference, with respect, and which is what they deserve anyway, okay, really will yield great rewards for you in the long run.
Yeah.
And also, when you're making a face-to-face call on a company, what I tell salespeople is when you step out of your car or step out of the subway, wherever you're making that call from, okay, and walking onto the company parking lot or into the entrance of the company, you've got to treat that action as if you're live on stage on Broadway. Because people are watching you, people are seeing how you react, and oftentimes executives will go back to the receptionist, the secretary, their executive assistant, whoever it might be, and say to that person, how were you treated by that person, by the salesperson who's calling on you?
Yeah.
So make certain that you're always treating people with deference and respect. And that should be the norm anyway, but make sure that's the case when you're trying to make a connection with an executive.
Yeah, I love that you just brought this up. It's so important because I think people forget it's not just the words out of your mouth, the whole presentation. And I'd heard recently a very master sales person mention the fact that people in life in general, within the first couple of seconds, 5 seconds max, people have already built up their whole idea of you before you even opened up your mouth. So it's not just what you're going to say in the presentation that you worked so hard on and it looks perfect. It's actually your whole presentation, your body language, the way you're walking in there, the way you're treating everyone. It's like the whole package matters.
Yeah, we sometimes call that executive presence, and how you present yourself to the company, to the executive, to the receptionist, to the secretary. Make sure it's always the best it can be.
Yeah.
But especially when you're calling on an executive, because they will ask those other people around them, how they were treated by you. And you don't want to get a mark on that respect.
No, because I'm thinking, Steve, it will not just affect you on this call. C-level executives know other executives, and it could blackball you in other industries.
Other companies, other sections within the same company, all those kinds of things. And I'll also tell you this. I worked with a lot of senior executives at IBM when I was in that organization. And I'll tell you, a lot of them really went on first impressions of people. You never have a second chance to make a first good impression. So always make sure that you don't falter in that initial impression on the executive, because it will cost you not only in that company, as you just mentioned, but it could be other companies, other connections that executive may have.
Exactly. What are some of the classic ones you've seen of big mistakes that maybe young or time sales reps have made going into a meeting that were really put them on the wrong side?
Well, like I said before, lack of preparation is certainly one of the biggest ones. If you're not prepared for that meeting, that's a black mark. The second thing is if you're trying to go into the executive's office selling your product or service before you understand what the executive's needs and requirements are. In other words, if you're presenting your solution before you listen to them, that's a second really big mistake. And the third is that you don't have a solution for them, but you're going to try to sell them something anyway. If you go into a company and you listen to what that executive's requirements are and your solution doesn't match, well, you may have to say, well, look, let me come back when you have another opportunity here, because I don't think my solution is a fit for you for this particular situation. Be honest, executive.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that. That is so important. I recall, I think it was 2 years ago, we were going to do an event in Manhattan, and there was someone that called me who was really interested in participating in the event as a sponsor. And she was, I think, a fashion firm. And it was interesting because she kept saying, and I kept saying, the target market, the people that are showing up at this event, I didn't feel were going to match the people that she sold to. And I said, you know what? I don't think we could best serve you in this function, but in September during Fashion Week, we're actually going to work work with a company that actually deals with beauty and fashion, and I think that would fit you way more. And in other cases, to step to the other direction, there are people who call that way off the mark. They have no, they would not fit with our market at all. And I said, listen, I'd love to have you on the show, or I'd love for you to be a sponsor, but I don't really feel our audience would match what you're looking for. And then I send them to another show or another place where I feel best suit them. And some of those people have been some of the best referrals. They've sent other people our way that do match us. And so when you're thinking, hey, I need that sale right now, I'm going to just force my product or information on them, it's not the best solution for you or them in the long run, because they're going to be upset that they spent money on something that didn't bring them value, and you're going to lose a customer for life. And who knows how many other people, when they talk about the bad experience they had with you.
Absolutely. And, one of the things you want to be careful about is the fact that you're always operating at the highest level of integrity. You can't gain back integrity. Once you lose it, you've lost it. Okay. So always operate at the highest levels of integrity. I'll never forget, I was in a meeting one time with a senior IBM executive, and he made a statement that has stuck with me for life. And this is probably 40 years ago that he said this. Okay. He stood up in front of an audience and he said, if you lose your job, that's terrible. If you lose your health, that's catastrophic. If you lose your integrity, you've lost everything. So you can't gain that back. So always operate at the highest level of integrity. Have others know that you're operating at that level, and they'll respect that also. And you'll become known for that. That's the way you want to operate in the business environment.
Yeah, because you'll have that trust factor that everyone can count on and rely on. And tell me, what is your perspective on phone selling? Because when you first meet C-level executives or any potential client, generally it's on the phone or sometimes even email, as opposed to meeting face-to-face. Or are there different things that people have to pay attention to besides body language?
Well, absolutely. This goes back to when you're calling the executive on the phone to make that appointment. Okay. I always tell salespeople, I tell my children, okay, if you're making an important call, you probably want to have a crib sheet in front of you. They don't know that you have that level of preparation, that homework, that cheat sheet in front of you. Okay. You want to know what you're going to say to the executive. And if you're trying to get a meeting with the executive, you have to have like 4 areas of focus in a 3 to 5 minute phone call to get that meeting with the executive or that initial contact or interaction with the executive. You have to be able to introduce yourself so the executive knows who you are and, why you're calling them. You have to state the purpose of your call. You have to be very clear, concise, and specific as you explain the purpose. And then you have to gain some credibility quickly using the homework you've done to provide a glimpse of the value you could deliver to them. Maybe explaining how you've helped other companies address similar challenges in this particular area. And then lastly, you have to do what I call a commitment and action kind of statement, proposing a clear and specific action that you want the executive to take. Set up a meeting, set up a conference call, attend a meeting, participate in a session, whatever the case may be. But you want to have those 4 areas down in front of you, okay? We actually, in our workshop, have salespeople go through role plays doing this kind of thing, because you wouldn't believe how many salespeople can't do that effectively and concisely with an executive. And the other thing is, when you're on the telephone with an executive or an executive assistant, you're going to get distracted. They may say something to you. They may pose some questions to you. And then all of a sudden, you're going to forget your train of thought. You're going to forget why you were trying to get that meeting, perhaps, or a little bit about your credibility. If you have it all written down in bullet points in front of you, I don't say you have to have a long script, but you should have some bullet points in front of you so that you can make that an effective phone call And again, showing that executive that you're prepared and ready to meet with them. And again, that you're doing some homework even before that initial phone call with them.
Wow. You've hit so many wonderful points that go to a lot of different things. I've worked in AR and collections. And I remember when I first got started years ago, I would actually script out what I had to ask the client that are the key points, the most important thing I had to get on the table, and also where I could write their answers. So, and then once you get good at it, I no longer need the key points because I understand I can now do it like it's natural, like breathing. And the same goes when I first started doing broadcasting here. I was nervous. Doing the intros and all of that, or even talking to a client, guest, I would get so nervous that I would flounder and be upset and whatever. So I started to write things on. Now I have in front of me notes about you and our talk, but I used to actually write out what I was going to say every single word, because for me, it kind of made me feel comfortable to know that sitting there that I could refer to it and make me feel confident. As you do it over and over and over again, you don't really need to see every single word on the paper. You can have the key points and you can keep going, but it's like getting up there in front of 1,000 people and doing a speech. To go up there without any key points or your little cards would be probably catastrophic in front of the audience as you sit here blank-faced, remembering what your next topic was going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. You always want to have as much information in front of you as you can.
Yeah.
And when you're on the phone, the executive has no idea how much information or content you have in front of you. Mm-hmm. So use that to your advantage, particularly in this type of a situation.
Absolutely. Well, this has been such a fascinating talk. Where can people find out more about your upcoming workshops and more about your company?
Well, SellXL.com. That's SellXL.com. And the book is Selling to the C-Suite. The second edition just came out about 10 days ago. It's on Amazon. You will see it there. And the first edition became a sales bestseller. That's why they told us they wanted a second edition out, and we just updated it, and it's out there. So take advantage of that, and I think it'll help you. A lot of the graphics in the book come directly from my workshop, so it'll give you a lot of information about, what you can be doing to make yourself more effective in selling to executives.
Wow. And where they can get your book there, where can they find and join the workshop? Does it happen certain times of the year?
Well, we really only do workshops, private workshops for single companies. In other words, a company will have 15 to 20 salespeople, and we do those kind of workshops for them. They engage us to do that. So you'd have to be working for a company where you had at least 15 to 20 salespeople for it to be cost effective for us to do a workshop for you. But you can find more information about that on my website also.
Well, that's fabulous. I'm so grateful you were able to come and share your great wisdom today. Steve, I just want to thank you again.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Good night. Thank
you. Thank you so much, Steve, for coming to Savvy Business Radio.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Savvy Business Radio broadcasts worldwide via a large podcast network celebrating business owners, entrepreneurs, influencers, and successful individuals. Find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest. Call 732-474-7375 or email Christina@savvybusinessradio.com.